Hello guys, welcome back to another episode of Planet Coaster. Today we're going to be making the medieval theme section of the park, along with building the big centerpiece roller coaster of the section and theming that as well. So it's going to be a pretty action-packed episode today. I'll just speak whenever needed, so sit back with your popcorn, your soda, a little bit of that, and let's get straight in to what we're going to be doing today. You'll see in a second that I start building the facade of the roller coaster that I'm going to do in this section. And that is going to be a Eurofighter style roller coaster. I kind of want it to feel like Fluch Von Novgorod in Hansa Park and things like Saw the Ride at Thorpe Park, with it having the opening section with the launch, little inversion, and then going into the main part of the ride. But for the theme of it, I kind of want it to have its own sort of thing. And I eventually decided on the theme being you're trying to escape from this mad king who's got you trapped in this castle. And I think it does work quite well. I think it is portrayed quite well in this ride really. And the main point of this ride is to try and tell a sort of story without using any text, any words. So later in the episode you see I make a pre-show for the ride after I completely redo the entire building up the front using different materials, because about halfway through making this building I realised that I don't have the right parts with the materials, so I make it out of actual castle stone rather than the sandstone I'm using here. I just feel that the castle stone looks like a more authentic medieval material, and it looks much better than the sandstone used here. So now that I've actually placed the roller coaster station, I can start thinking about the layout of the ride. I want this ride to have a sort of, as I said before, inspiration by Fluch Von Novgorod and Saw the Ride, and just a lot of different Eurofighters, to be honest. The first section is going to be kind of like a almost dark ride roller coaster sort of thing, and then obviously followed by the snappy launch and the first few turns and inversions of the ride. Now this first top hat was a little bit tricky to do because I didn't want it to go over too fast. I didn't want it to go over too slowly. So you saw just then I tweaked the speed of the launch a little bit so that it wouldn't fly over, but it wouldn't crawl over. So it would just give a pleasant pop of airtime, if you will. And that was kind of the aim for this ride, for it to be pretty fun but not too intense. So it's more accessible for different people in the park. But you'll see just now when I'm making the inversion, it is very weird how it jolts through it, but that's because I'm trying to make the shaping as realistic as possible, but sadly that sacrifices a bit of the smoothness. And I think that's the only real problem I have with this game, is that because it doesn't feature continuous roll, so you can't make everything perfectly smooth, it's really hard to make things look realistic and be very smooth at the same time. And there are different techniques people have used to make it feel smoother, like going over it 8 times or something with the smoothing tool, but I really cannot be asked to do that, because with those techniques you have to remember so many things that it just gets ridiculous at some point. You have to use an exact track type and exact track size, you have to bank it at a certain amount each time. It just gets stupid really. So I'm just going to try and make it as smooth as I can without using any of these dumb techniques that people use to make things ridiculously smooth in this game. And I think overall it worked out, because it ends up pretty good, so I can't really complain there. But in the end, if you want to make roller coasters, use No Limits, because that's much better. But if you want to make theme parks and you want to perfect the theming, use this, because this is much better for theming if you don't want to use SketchUp or 3D design software and stuff like that. And I would say overall as a game this is much better than No Limits, because this actually has a point to it rather than just to make really realistic roller coasters. And I think that's my rant on Planet Coaster, the roller coaster building, over. So I'll just let you enjoy what I make of the ride really. Now this actual rollercoaster section is heavily inspired by Saw the Ride. Pretty much it's the last half of the total experience, pretty much, minus the Immelman loop, pretty much. Because if you look at Saw the Ride, the last half is the overbank turn, the airtime hill, and then the dive loop, and then it's pretty much over. So I did that. I did swap those elements around a little bit, but not really too much. And you'll notice that I'm starting to build a structure around the vertical lift. That's because, as I said, I'm taking inspiration from Fluch Von Novgorod at Hansa Park, because I'm really interested in that ride, because it looks like a really cool ride, a cool experience, and I want to pay homage to that in a sense. So the whole lift hill is enclosed, and then it goes into a vertical lift into a hill, and that's pretty much the ride. So I decided to do the vertical lift like enclosed thing from Fluch Von Novgorod, and then the rest of the ride like Saw the Ride. So just kind of like mix and match different elements from the two rides to make it like kind of its own thing and kind of not. But in a way, everything in this park is like an inspiration from something else, because like the train station's like an inspiration from Alton Towers, with the monorail built into the entrance. The big mountain roller coaster is an inspiration from Disney, like Matterhorn. The first section is like inspiration from Europa Park's different theme sections, and this is an inspiration from, as I keep on saying, Fluch Von Novgorod and Saw the Ride. So yeah, it kind of gives it its own bit of character, so that's what I like about making this. So you see, after I finish making like the ride layout, I do go back and I just rebuild literally the entire like castle and the entire clock tower structure using the castle stone. So I'll get back to you when I finish doing that, really. now that that long and arduous process is over, I can start talking about theming. And I'm going to say this because I actually forgot to mention this at the start of the video, but I actually I did all of this filming over the course of 2 days because I did it at like 11 in the afternoon, and I really can't be asked to do that for like 2-3 hours, which is what I ended up filming for this entire video. So yeah, it was a long time that I spent on this video, because the first day was really just making the roller coaster and the facade around it, and then a majority of the time that I spent on this ride was just theming it all. So that's really what I get up to. That's what I'm really doing this like second half of the video really. So I really themed the queue line and like the inside of the castle. Welcome the pre-show. I finished the pre-show. Next episode I'm going to be just theming the entire section properly, and like theming around the ride and making it look like a proper ride. Because at the moment all I've got is the facade, which looks good, but yeah, it needs some more work done to it. So now we're finally starting work on the interior section. So this is where I really start making it feel like a castle on the inside and making the pre-show. And I guess I'll really talk about the pre-show now. So the pre-show is like the resurrection of this dead king really. So you'll see that there are fire effects, there's some mist effects, electricity, like plants all around it. It just all comes together to make like a proper formidable entrance for this creature really. So you walk through this castle. It's like the first room you come across is the burial room of this king, with the lid of the grave slid to one side. Then you enter like this king's dungeon, which has like skeletons hanging up from the ceiling. I was gonna make it like it was his sort of living room or something like that, but it really didn't work, so I decided to make it his dungeon with like the skeletons, like the jail bars, stuff like that. Really give it quite a dark theme. And quite a few of the rides that I really like have dark themes. Like one of my all-time favourite rides is Wicker Man Alton Towers, and that has a very dark theme of these people that want to like burn people alive because the Wicker Man told them to, pretty much. And a lot of the rides at Thorpe Park have really dark themes, like the Swarm, which is about aliens coming and destroying the area that Thorpe Park's in, like Saw, which is you trying to escape Jigsaw's killing house really. But dark themes aren't always that good, because you might like just ruin the market that you're trying to go towards. But I think it's good for your ride to have its like own unique personality, and if a dark theme would do that, then that's fine. And I think the dark theme really makes the ride's personality shine if you want. And I mean, I would certainly ride it if it was a real thing. So yeah, this is the just the pre-show room, trying to make it look as atmospheric as possible, putting the fireplace out there, putting a few vines across a few of the dead branches, and trying to make it more realistic, so putting the fences and all the necessary safety precautions in there, because as I said before, I want to make this park feel realistic, so putting all the fences and that in there just make it feel like a more living, breathing park really. Now a majority of this video is spent just making the pre-show, so I'll fast forward a little bit through that because it is a pretty long and boring process making the pre-show, and I'll get back to you when I start theming like other parts of the queue line and the ride. So now that I've finished the pre-show, which is going to be in the next video, because I'm going to do a walkthrough of the queue in the next video, I think, just to give you guys a feel of like how the queue line is like made and how it's laid out and like properly how it looks on the inside, really. So now I get on to making the dungeon sort of thing. So as you can see by the Grandmaster clock, I wasn't really thinking about what I was going to do at the start, but then I put the skeletons up and then I realised, oh, there are jail bars and jail cells that you can put in, so I decided to make it the dungeon sort of thing with the skeletons hanging up from the walls and this little raven from the tree. I don't know what that means, but I like it, so yeah, that's gonna stay in there. And again, there's not really much to talk about. I mean, it's just really a basic dungeon sort of setting, so I'll carry on speaking when I start doing stuff on the inside of the roller coaster area rather than the queue line. So as seen right here, I don't really bother theming the station that much. It's just really the atmosphere that I want to get in there, and really just the excitement of going onto the ride. I don't really think there's like much that needs to be done in the station, but now it's actually onto the theming of this part of the ride. So in this first bit, you want to go out, and I want it to feel like you're in the dark, like you're going into like a dark woods kind of, and then you turn the corner, and then there's just the ghost like that jumps out at you. And I want to just have that little shock value, if you want, of like the ghost of this dead king kind of just jumping out at you, and then like you're running through this forest and his castle and this clock tower, just trying to get away from him. And then in this little bit in the launch, I do get a little bit metaphorical, because I put down like magma, and like you're diving into like the pits of hell to try and like escape him. And it's just like little things like that which I think make this ride a little bit special, if you know what I mean. And of course, next episode we're gonna be like theming the rest of the ride, like the actual roller coaster portion, and and just theming the rest of the medieval area. Maybe start working on a new roller coaster, but I might only be doing one roller coaster per area, so maybe doing that. But with a lot of rides, you can't really or with big roller coasters anyway, it's really difficult to make a proper immersive theme in like the actual roller coaster bit, because it's all well and good you having like theming in the queue line, like a story for it, like Baron 1898, but it's really difficult to like put that into the big like thrilling section of the ride. I think the only real ride that's actually done that properly is Taron at Phantasialand, because the story of the ride is you like in the car flying through this like magical village, really. I'm flying through all of these rock structures that you narrowly miss on your way to pretty much creating power with the vehicle that you're in. Like, I don't know the specifics of it, but if you look it up on Taron storyline from Fantasia, you'll probably be able to find it, because it's like pretty well put out by the park. But Fantasialand know how to do theming perfectly, in my opinion, but so do a lot of European parks, because apart from Universal and Disney, like really the places where you get the like most perfect theming, like overall, is in Europe. Like a lot of European parks, like even smaller parks like Toverland, like they know how to do theming really well. And then there are the bigger parks like Europa Park, Efteling, Fantasialand, things like that, which really like blow you away with the extent to like how they theme their rides. And I think the US and England can really learn a thing or two from that, because like the US, they have the budget, they just can't be arsed. Like a lot of the chain parks, like the Cedar Fair, Six Flags, things like that, they have the budget to make things like this, but they would prefer to go on like big roller coasters and flat rides rather than immersively theme their rides, which I think is kind of disappointing, to be honest. Like the only really good themed parks in America are the Disney and Universal parks, and even though like Disney and Universal, the theming is absolutely spectacular, it lacks the charm of like a family-owned like European park, like as I said before, Europa Park or Toverland. And that's why I think European parks are the best in the world, because even though they don't have the budget of American parks such as Cedar Point, Six Flags Magic Mountain, things like that, they overall have better atmospheres, I think. Even though I haven't been to most American parks, I've only been to 4, the 2 Universal parks in Florida, Six Flags over Georgia, and Busch Gardens Tampa. From things that I've seen online, they just don't do theming well enough. And although they're trying to do theming more, like Cedar Point making like a story for Steel Vengeance, it really doesn't really compare to how European parks theme their roller coasters and rides, such as Efteling's Baron 1898 or Hansa Park's Der Schwur des Kernan. Nothing in the US really compares to things like that, because in the US I feel like they're more dedicated to like getting the screams out of people rather than making the park immersive in its theme. So going back to the theming of this ride, the first bit of the queue line is just like the garden of like this castle, really, and I tried to make it as much in like to do with the colour red as possible, as to like truly sell like how blood obsessed this king is, and how like obsessed he is with killing and things like that. And of course I just scattered a few graves in there just for good measure, you know, because that's what you do with graves, right? You just like sprinkle them in. But I didn't really take too much time with this, just because I don't think it needs too much time, because it's just a few flowers and that in it. So I really start shifting my attention over to the clock tower, which also plays quite a big role in the story. Pretty much this king's tower like locks down after 12 o'clock, so you need to like get out of there before 12 o'clock, and that's why you'll see the emphasis on like clocks and things like that in the clock tower. So there's like clocks on the outside, and then on the top of the like ceiling there's like I think 14 clocks, like all along, like all hitting 12 at the same time, like when you're diving down. So I think it just makes the story a little bit more immersive, if you know what I mean. It really brings all the elements of the story into like one thing into the ride. So yeah, I think it turns out pretty good, because you're facing all of these clocks as you're going up the vertical lift hill. So like as they're all counting towards 12, you're like, oh, let's get there. Try to get there as quickly as possible while it's going on this vertical hill, pretty slowly actually. And then obviously it's like the final rush to get out of the cusp, as you're like sweeping across these inversions, these airtime hills, these overbank turns, and then finally back into the station where more people's journeys start. But I really think that's everything to do with this ride, really. I do try to make like start theming on the area in a bit, but I think that's all that I do with the ride, really. There are a few more minutes of footage, but I think at this point it's just time for me to sign off. So if you want, you can subscribe, press that like button. If you didn't like this video, then you can dislike it if you want. Not saying you should, not saying you have to, just if you want. If you really didn't like this video, just pop a dislike in there. and leave a comment. Tell me what I can improve on. Tell me what you think I should do with this park in the future. But really, that's about it for this video. Hope you have a good week. Hope you have a good weekend if you're watching this on the weekend. And yeah, see ya.